Hello friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Katja and this time we are looking into couture techniques in skirt making. I found this amazing Italian wool from the discount pile of a local fabric shop. I had long been drooling after it, but its original price was way out of my skirt budget. Now with a big discount I brought home a piece that was enough to make a nice tartan skirt for the winter. I dug out the zinnia skirt pattern by Colette Patterns. I have made several skirts out of it already and I knew that it was a good pattern for me. I had to be very careful with how I placed the pattern pieces. The plaid was rectangular and I could place the back piece upside down. I marked the space I needed to cut the waistband and added all the remaining fabric to the length of the skirt, just to have the option of making it longer later. Now, as this fabric was originally something like 86 euros per meter, I think it deserved the best sewing techniques. That way I could get the most out of this quality wool. So, to improve the drape and to prevent excess wrinkling, I decided to underline the wool with the organza. I basted the silk organza on with loose basting stitches. I planned to bleed this fabric, so I didn't need to worry about the effect the curvature would have on the silk. However, with pencil skirts, the silk should be just a bit narrower than the wool as the fabric curves and the top layer needs to be just a little bit wider. Next, I cut some big pockets. I had matching red cotton sateen that I used to make the pocket backs. To make the pockets very neat, I French seamed them. I know that the pockets are inside and no one sees them, but hey, we are trying to make a couture skirt. Now I can sew the side seams, leaving room for the pocket openings. Next I press the seams. I first press the seams flat under a moist rag. The tailor's clapper helps to absorb all the extra moisture and helps to create smooth seams. Now I open the seam and press it open. I first sprinkled some water on the seam, then I covered the seam with my press cloth and press with a dry iron. Then I placed a clapper on the top. Now I can attach the pockets. Next, I need to finish the seams. I'm using a method called Hong Kong finish. For this, I need to cut long wire strips. I use the same fabric I used for the pockets. I sew the strip onto the seam allowance. The wrong side of the strip is up. Then I narrow down the seam allowances and turn the strip of fabric over the edge of the seam allowance. Next, I stitch in the bit to fasten the free edge of the strip. Now I need to determine how I want to pleat the skirt. The pattern had 3 pleats on each side, but I think I want to go with only 2. However, here it is important to try the skirt on, as the skirt may hang differently on the dress form than on you. When I'm happy with the pleats, I baste them down. I sew an invisible zipper to the center back seam. When properly attached, the invisible zipper is really invisible and you can't see a difference between the zipper and a regular seam. Then I can sew the seam from the zipper down. My favorite couture technique in skirt making is the couture waistband. This not only takes less fabric, but it also has less bulk and it feels nice and doesn't roll. It also doesn't have fusible interfacing. Fusible interfacing can be a pesky thing, as sometimes it starts to separate from the fabric and creates ugly bubbles. For a couture waistband, you need to cut a strip of hair canvas that has the exact dimensions of the finished waistband. No seam allowance is needed. Then you cut a strip of silk organza, but now add the seam allowances. Next, the hair canvas is stitched to the silk organza like this. Next, sew the silk organza to interface your waistband. Stitch just next to the hair canvas. I experimented and sewed a little farther away, and that was a bad idea, as it left room for a small bubble that made it harder to turn the waistband edge. The wrong side of the waistband is finished with cross-grain tape. The tape should be a few millimeters wider than your finished waistband. Sew the cross-grain tape to the waistband seam allowance about 2 millimeters from the top of the waistband. This way one can't see the ribbon from the right side. Now at this point we can sew the waistband onto the skirt. let's stop for a while. I had been debating with myself on which kind of lining I should have. I normally used regular acetate lining fabric, but that felt cheap. Then I remembered this piece of silk chamois I had stored for ages. It is blue, but the shade is deep enough to match the overall color scheme, and besides, no one will see the lining anyway. If anyone sees the blunder I made here, good job. Yes, I cut 2 right fronts and 2 right backs. Luckily the back and front sides don't differ too much, and I was able to salvage the pieces with some small adjustments. I sew the lining together with French seams. Now I can pleat the lining onto the skirt. I hung the skirt the wrong way around onto my dress form to be able to pin the lining in place. After attaching the lining, I can finally finish the waistband. This is done by hand. I first sew a row of tiny stitches around the top edge of the waistband. This neatens the edge that had a bit trouble settling down. This is mainly due to the fact that I didn't stitch the interfacing on at the edge of the hair canvas. Now I slip stitch the cross grain ribbon on. This is done from underneath by folding the edge of the ribbon up. At this point, it is a good idea to leave the skirt to hang for a few days. Then we only need to finish the hem. For the hem, I cut wide strips of silk organza. Then I pressed the edge up using lots of steam to shrink away the excess width. It was very difficult to manage this on my ironing board as the weight of the skirt kept pulling the fabric unevenly. Finally I realized that I could collapse the ironing board and do the pressing on the floor. It looks weird, but it worked. I finished the edge of the hem allowance with bias band that I basted on. I then took the long strip of silk organza I had made and folded it in half. I placed the silk under the hem allowance and sewed both the bias band and the silk organza strip on the hem allowance in one go. Then I slip stitched the hem allowance in place to the black underlining only. That way the hem doesn't show on the right side. Now, here is my skirt. It has been hanging here for a week because some of the pleats have sort of wanted to go all over the place, and now I've sort of tried to arrange them and let it hang so that they settled where they wanted to be, and I think this is getting there. I also sprayed this with water a bit, and that certainly helped. I think this is sort of nitpicking because nobody would care about this tiny thing, but now that I've spent so much time doing all these weird hems and stuff, I think that I may have started thinking about these things a bit too much. But I think that this is not going to get any better by just hanging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few stitches here at the bottom of the pleat to hold them in place. So I think I need to determine where I want these pleats to be and then do a few stitches that will secure the pleats. And after that, this skirt will be ready. Thank you for watching. Please help me to grow this channel by clicking thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. See you soon on another video. Bye.